Welcome back once again to the channel, guys. Today's interview is with lead singer of a band called American Hotel System named Jacob Betts. He and I get to sit down a couple months back, actually, when we were playing a gig up in Grand Rapids. It was actually both of our last gigs, and actually Jacob made a tour vlog about it that I'll link below so you guys can get a little sneak peek. I actually made a vlog the exact same day, so it's kind of cool. We'll have some complimentary stuff going back and forth. But I'll make sure to link the vlog that Jacob made of this day, our last gig together a couple months back. But he and I, before we got to the gig, we get to sit down at Wild Roast Coffee and just talk about, honestly, kind of a touchy subject, which is the whole controversy between being a Christian musician and being a musician who's a Christian, you know, and just kind of that classic question that kind of involves both branding and morality and all these different things. So he and I got to sit down and talk about his experience with it, and he has a lot of really great input to give. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope it's able to just kind of give you some peace and some insight into the conversation. There's no one-size-fits-all for this stuff, so this interview isn't meant to be a dogmatic, authoritative thing, but just to give some insight and to give some conversation points. So without further ado, here's Jacob Betts of the American Hotel System on the Christian musician controversy. Well, cool. Well, guys, we've been sitting down with Jacob Betts here. He's the lead singer of American Hotel System. We've been talking about marketing and how the band got started and everything. Just getting a little bit of information about the different members, how they all got started. Which you guys primarily met at Grace
Bible College back in the day.
It's
Grace Christian University now.
Okay.
But we, I had no connection there beforehand. Very small school. When I was there, I think there were 300, a little less than 300 traditional students. Mm-hmm. It's larger now. We're a university now.
Okay.
So, their online program's very large.
Yeah.
But Haley and I, Haley plays drums. Haley and I have been friends for 10 years. Mm-hmm. So we met in high school. We met in middle school, actually. Sorry. Okay. We met in middle school and became friends. I mean, we were on like a retreat weekend with our churches, and I was the guitar guy, and she was like, I used to play guitar, but I gave it up. And I was like, why? Why'd you give it up? She's like, well, I play drums, but I was like, you should pick guitar back up. So we started playing music that weekend.
Okay.
She has an identical twin.
Okay,
so,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Heather.
Does she also play drums?
Shout out to Heather. No, Heather is a pianist. So she's an amazing pianist. I believe that was one of her majors in college. She's a social worker now, so she's in the trenches helping people in a different way.
Yeah.
But we were in a band in a high school called JH Squared, and you might be able to find something if you look us up. But it's cringy. It's cringy.
Anything
stuff.
on Instagram or anything? YouTube?
Oh, dude,
YouTube,
no,
right?
No,
nothing.
No, I think I scrubbed that clean a few years ago. No, we're because J, and then H squared, which is actually it would be 4 H's if it was squared, but it just looks cool. I made a logo.
Right.
I love visual marketing, so I did the J and then the H. And then the 2 above the H because Jacob, Haley, Heather. But
hey, it's okay.
We got offered a record deal, actually.
By?
I won't say who, but we got offered a record deal by an indie record label when we were juniors in high school.
Wow.
And because we had a demo EP, and we toured Northern Michigan, different churches and stuff. We had like a little group of people who would follow us all over. That felt cool, right?
That felt cool, especially at 17 years old.
When you're like 17, you're like,
I've made it.
I've made it.
I'm not making any money, but I've made it.
I made this demo on my iPad
with
like the IK multimedia recording rig my grandma bought me.
Yeah.
And I still used those headphones up until 2 months ago. So that I got with that kit. And so we recorded that demo. And so Haley and I have been friends for a long time. We went to Grace together to do the music program, which at the time was the highest rated worship arts program in the country.
Oh, sick! Wow.
Yeah, and so they were just incredible. Dr. Jason Workema is the head of the program there, hugely influential on all of our lives. We met Jake there playing bass, and then Samuel came in with Haley and I's freshman class. Jake was a year ahead of us.
Okay.
So Jake actually graduated with my wife. I met my wife there.
Okay.
And so they were in the same program together, and I met Christian here, and so that's how we got connected. And so we played together for about 5 years. but we've been a band for like 3.
Cool.
So,
yeah,
man.
yeah. It's always fun hearing the stories of like, I don't know how the Lord orchestrates just everybody meeting all these crazy times. You know,
It's wild.
It's super weird. Super weird. Even with like, there's a common thread with meeting your spouse at Bible college.
Absolutely. You met yours, yeah?
Yeah, I met my wife at Bible college. We went to Word of Life Bible Institute in upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm from Massachusetts. My wife is from Kalamazoo, Michigan.
She's
born.
from Kalamazoo.
Yes, yeah. So she's not born and raised, but like close enough. She was born in like Arlington Heights in Chicago.
Okay.
And then I think when she was like 4 years old, they moved back to Kalamazoo because her mom's entire family is from here. So
wow.
I always want to say born and raised, but that's not accurate because she was born in Chicago. So but practically speaking, she was born and raised.
For all intents and purposes.
Yes, she was born and raised in Kalamazoo.
You know, I live in Wyoming, but we're based out of Wyoming, but I say Grand Rapids because it's a suburb.
Right, exactly. Which honestly, it's funny. I think when I'm describing people where I'm from, Massachusetts, they always ask like, "Oh, so how far is that from Boston?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's like 45 minutes outside of Boston. I'm actually closer to living in New Hampshire, but sure, I'm from Boston.
Sure, I'm from Boston.
I'm from Boston. Literally everybody in Massachusetts, I'm from Boston."
I saw the Jonas Brothers in 2009 on the world tour. I'm unashamed of that too.
Hey, they're
awesome.
Good, man. Burning Up is a hot track.
Yeah, that is the song.
Track.
It's good.
Yeah,
that's the song that inspired Christian to pick up guitar.
No way.
Yeah, so our guitar player wouldn't exist without the Jonas Brothers. So.
I am happy to hear that a guy who has a huge hardcore background was inspired to play guitar by the Jonas Brothers. Yeah,
Burning Up, man, it's true. Look
at
that. If you guys haven't seen, anybody who's listening or watching who hasn't seen Christian, Christian has like
a full sleeve of tattoos.
I mean, probably 40 or 50 tattoos.
Yeah.
Around various places, but his arms, his hands, he looks very
He's a rocker.
menacing at times. Yeah. When I first met him, I was afraid. No, I was. Our first shift together behind the espresso bar, I was like, so is this guy like, is he like too cool for me to be around, or is he like? But he has like the biggest heart of like, he's a great dude. But
I love that.
Joe Bro is inspired. I saw them in 2009, and they were like, it was in Auburn Hills at the Palace. Rest in peace, the Palace. And they went, "What's up, Detroit?"
Oh.
And everyone's like, "Yeah!" And I was like, "We're not in Detroit."
Yeah,
but
my word.
Same thing.
Bad thinking.
Same thing.
Well, hey, so today our topic is actually going to be something that Jacob and I were talking about probably about a month ago. I remember, I think for different things, I was kind of seeking some insight from different people. Obviously this whole channel, whether it's a podcast or YouTube, is all about just kind of helping out musicians with kind of figuring out what their next steps are. Because I'm sure, as you can remember from your own music career developing, it's like super overwhelming and can feel super lonely at times. Like just trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do next? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I not supposed to be doing? And especially, even with a band, but with an artist as well, it gets pretty lonely because you don't have like a full team behind you. So the whole goal of this channel is to help people like you who are hopefully watching and listening, just to know some next steps, whether that be practical stuff with the Instagram insights you're giving us, which is super helpful.
Hey, there we go. I can't take credit for that. That's all Adam Ivy. So
well, hey, but still, Adam Ivy, thank you for teaching Jacob that. So you can teach me that. So whether it be marketing techniques or even just, I'm actually going to have some people on the podcast who are actually doing full-time music right now.
Oh, nice.
And just kind of getting insight from them of like, I think, first of all, how they did that, and saying some guidance points, but as well as kind of breaking down some of the myths behind it of like, it's going to be, your life's going to be perfect once you're doing music full-time and everything. Because I think it's really easy, like, farce for us all to fall for, sort of thing.
Far from it.
Yeah. It's like life is still going to be life no matter what you're doing.
Once you have Jesus, you'll never have a problem ever again.
Right. Yeah. Totally. No,
that's not true.
And it's like something Jesus has never said. You'll never have problems once you have me.
No.
It's actually the opposite. It's like, anyone who wants to follow me, pick up your cross.
Take that clip out of context.
Right.
And that. Oh no, American hotel system.
Prosperity gospel.
Right. Exactly. It's like it's the opposite of that.
Right. Exactly. It's a suffering gospel. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Life is difficult.
Yeah.
That makes it so much sweeter. You know? So I think music is the same way. Where it's tough.
Yeah.
The highs are so high.
Yeah.
Like I cannot describe to you, at our release show, like hearing people sing
your lyrics,
the lyrics that I've written back to me, like. That was like a few hundred, right? I saw Garth Brooks in Detroit last Saturday. 70,000 people. There was one song he didn't even have to speak a single word to.
Everybody just knew it.
He just let everybody sing it.
Wow.
Can you imagine? He cried, right?
Imagine.
Like, so the highs are so high and just indescribable.
Yeah.
But the lows
they're tough.
Are so low because it's art.
Yeah.
It's a craft.
Yeah.
And it's so personal.
Yeah.
So I think that, that's a good. I'm excited to hear. The other people who are going to.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. But so Jacob and I had this conversation about a month ago, just talking about specifically. I've tried to get insight from some different people about the whole question of Christians, what they're supposed to, or what the wisdom is. Usually, I think we think about that way of like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what box am I supposed to check off?
Right.
What am I supposed to do in order to not be like sinning or not living in the fullness of what the Lord has for me? And I think Christianity and music is a really complicated mix a lot of time. I think especially over the past probably like 20, 30 years, kind of starting in the 80s.
The worship wars.
The worship wars. Yeah, but then even with the 80s, if like you think about like Natalie Grant and everything, kind of just crossing over.
Curtis Chapman.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even know about Stephen Curtis Chapman. I just knew about. Yeah, what was his deal?
He was crossover.
Okay.
So he had some hits. My mom listened to him and she didn't know he was a Christian artist.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Petra. I think they made big enough waves that they attracted non-Christian audience for sure.
Absolutely.
Just talking with somebody the other day, they didn't realize that Demon Hunter was a Christian band.
Yeah,
they just like him because they're like, this is someone who listens to like Rammstein.
Right.
Super hardcore. Yeah. Like things that I'm like uncomfortable like seeing and watching, and they're like, oh, I love Demon Hunter, and I was like, oh, they're a Christian band. Like what?
What?
Like,
no, they're not.
How would you? What?
Yeah. So I think over the past, I don't know all the history behind it, but just especially over the past 30 years, kind of you started seeing some of that more artists starting off in a Christian environment and then crossing over into mainstream and secular, however you want to call that.
Yeah.
And then obviously catching some flack from the church and catching some flack from some of their followers, and I understand why, because it's tricky. I think all these things take a lot of insight and discernment. The hard part is that, and this will be the thesis statement for the whole piece of content we're doing, is the sad part is there's not a one size fits all answer. That's the really tough part. And I think for me, when I was struggling through, loving Switchfoot, for instance, loving the things they're doing, and then as my spiritual maturity grew, I was able to hear wow, it is so obvious that he loves the Lord.
Without a
ton,
doubt. Without a doubt.
But for me as a 12-year-old kid, I was going he's not saying Jesus by name. And, I'm not hearing the cross talked about.
Yeah.
But then once you mature, and this isn't a thing of well, it depends on how you look at it. It's I think as long as you have a more poetic mind, and I get that some people don't have that poetic intuitiveness, which I can understand why it's hard, but I think if you are a poetic person and you're growing in the Lord, you're going to be able to hear so obviously that John Foreman absolutely loves the Lord and is trying to give people hope in that. But at the same time, there's still this thing of I remember we were talking about, I struggle with a thing, I think for me, with kind of being more of a more literal person sometimes. It's really hard going, okay, what is the line? Where do you start becoming ashamed of the gospel sort of thing by not taking these big opportunities where you're in front of 10,000 people and you're talking about hope, but at the same time, you're not putting a name to that hope directly, But obviously knowing at the same time that sometimes when you let the cat out of the bag too early, if I can put it that way, sort of thing, that you miss out on opportunities to where just because of spiritual darkness, people are going to check out immediately.
Yeah.
So
you're tuned off.
People,
yeah,
exactly,
right.
Because then you feel it's almost like when you're having a business connection with the music, and then you oh, hey, listen to my EP. It's you want to wait until you develop a relationship with that person. Develop a relationship.
Are you using me?
Right, exactly. So I think people can end up feeling like that sometimes, and so. Yeah. I think I finally came to a place of peace with Switchfoot, realizing, even realizing passages of scripture talking about needing to listen to your conscience. Yes, you need to listen to the unadulterated word of God for guidance, for sure. But then there is this really difficult part of
the application of clear interpretation of Scripture, right?
Yeah.
So interpret that literally, but then your personal application of that with how the Lord's gifted you and how He's looking to use you within the body of Christ, and even realizing that musicians could actually be different parts of the body of Christ, which is a really complicated thing too, of realizing, okay, all those musicians aren't necessarily preachers or teachers. Like they may be encouragers, you know what I'm saying, to where they want to develop a relationship with that person. So anyway, so we kind of talked about walking this difficult line, and I know I've heard from different people who have had experience in the Christian music industry. Some of them have gotten really burned, and almost kind of the stories you hear about people leaving the church because, you know, and kind of wrongly, you know, throwing the baby out the bathwater, like leaving Christianity, leaving Jesus Christ himself because they've been burned by something in the church. And sadly, I think some people musicians get burned by the Christian music industry, and sometimes they end up tossing the baby out the bathwater. But at the same time, we've heard a lot of stuff from people that I've known who have worked in the Christian music industry of like, it's not everything it looks like. There are some bands that literally like do not love Christ at all, sort of thing, and they're just using Christian music as a marketing scheme to be able to climb the charts, sort of thing. So I'd love for you to speak into that.
Yeah, I don't. So are you familiar with Emery? Are you familiar with Bad Christian?
No.
So okay, so band name Emery. Okay, so they're I would call them a Christian band. Yeah, they're on Tooth and Nail.
Okay,
so, they're part of that group of people who they're able to, I think, reach out to a whole demographic that CCM will never be able to. Yeah. It's just not possible. Right. Yeah. Within the Christian music industry, there's Christian radio in particular. Their reference for who they're catering to is somebody named Becky. This is an actual thing. You should look it up. I was reading about it the other day. So they have a fictional person named Becky, who is a 35 to 45-year-old woman who has a few kids, who drives her kids to soccer and listens to the radio station on the way to soccer practice. Yeah. Right? And if a song does not appeal to somebody in that demographic, they won't play it. Right? Yeah. And so that will never be able to reach a certain group of people. That's just, it's very limiting, right? So they're part of Tooth and Nail, and two of them started a podcast called Bad Christian, and they wrote a book called Bad Christian, Great Savior.
I think I've heard of that one.
Okay, yeah. So I was super into them about 5 or 6 years ago. I was on the Christian music subreddit. So, little backstory: I was a walking CCM jukebox throughout middle and high school. Yeah, same. You name them, I've seen them 12 times. Yeah. Was at the first performance of half their discography. Right, name them, I can tell you exactly everything about them, who produced the record, who played on it, all that kind of stuff, right? I was super into it. I went to Camp Electric. I'm a Camp Electric alumni. Oh, my word. Yeah.
I wanted to hit that up, but I never had the money.
So I'm a Camp Electric alumni. Cool. I went for a few years. What an amazing experience.
Yeah. Trevor McNeven, did you meet Trevor?
No. Oh. No.
1,000-foot crutch for those who don't know. Trevor McNeven?
Yeah, McNeven.
However you pronounce it. Trevor, if you're watching, tell us how do you pronounce your name.
Yeah. I've seen. Now they played at Camp Electric a ton,
dude, they're so
and he
dope.
did vocal.
They're so good.
So, I had opportunity to learn from a lot of really wise people in the industry. So, Tim Rose from Diverse City Band, Toby Mac.
Okay, yeah.
He was one of my teachers. Lots of people. Joan DeVivo from Casting Crowns, great guy. Yeah. Saw him at Madcap a few years ago.
Oh, really?
Went up to him. I was like, dude, I was one of your campers. And he was like, yeah, what's up? Like,
dude, what is up with Madcap and meeting people that are like...
They're right by Van Andel, 20 Monroe. They're right by DeVos, all the venues.
Because you also ran into John Foreman at Madcap like a month ago.
Yeah, so I was going to say, you're talking about it's obvious when John Foreman, when you hear him. I will say when you meet him and interact with him. So I've had the pleasure of... opportunity to meet all of those guys a ton of times. Yeah. 8 to 10 times. I've met them and talked with them. But a few months ago, I was sitting in Madcap. It's actually the day after our record came out. Yeah. So December 14th, I'm sitting in Madcap, and John Foreman walks in. Yeah. Now they didn't have a show here or anything that I knew about, and I was like, what's up? Now, if you're in a fandom for long enough and you go to enough shows, the artists start to recognize you and remember you, right? So I'm at that point with them, right? And you couldn't walk up to them and say my name, and they would know who I was. But facial recognition,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so I talked with them. I was like, man, I would love to buy your coffee. Just buy it for you. And I was like, what are you doing in town? They had like a corporate gig, and so I bought him a single origin cortado. I was like, yeah, what a that made me very happy. The coffee professional in me was delighted that he would order such a wonderful and unique drink that a true coffee lover would order.
Good job, John Foreman. We're proud of your coffee taste.
Bought it for him. Someone was like, oh, are you John Foreman? And so they went and they're like, I was like, all right, I'm just going to buy his coffee and go back.
Yeah.
Turns out the whole band was in town, and I'm sure this was like one of the few moments he was alone.
Yeah.
And instead of going and sitting by himself, he came up and he sat with me.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to talk to me. And so when you interact with him,
it's Jesus.
Like just compassion that man has. Many different industry professionals that I met at camp or have had, conversations about our band with, I always say, Switchfoot's just my favorite, and they're like, man, there was somebody I was talking to a few months ago and they've toured with Switchfoot before. And they said, nicest guys I've ever met in my life.
Straight up.
So I feel like kind of going into that then is like Christian music industry. Mm-hmm. My whole point with Bad Christian. So they're making a movie right now. It's on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, one of those two. It's crowdfunded.
Go donate to
that. And it's called What Would Jesus Sell? And it's about their experience, my understanding, it's about their experience in the industry and bands that they used to play with who literally only marketed themselves as Christian bands because in the late 90s, that was the hot thing. And you could make bank doing it. Money. Yeah. And so and now for me, as a independent musician, I have struggled with that, with saying, not saying, oh, should I or shouldn't I? I have struggled with the temptation to do that. The temptation of, oh, well, dude, if only you marketed yourself to a Christian audience, then you would have success. Yeah. Then you would have, the wonders of the world. And you would have all these things. And, look at all these riches that you could have if only you catered to that. That would be so wrong of me to do, right? That is, and I'm serious, like I have felt that very strongly. Even just like last week, I was doing marketing and I was thinking, oh, we have this song that is like the most explicitly faith-based song, but doesn't say Jesus in it, right. And if we recorded this and did all the big production, man, this would get radio play. And then we're playing a live fest, we're playing Creation Fest, So that's, for me, that's been a huge temptation, which it would not be honest and not be genuine. Yeah. So Bob Kauflin, have you ever heard of Bob Kauflin before? I think so. So he has a great book called Worship Matters. It's also a website.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I read that book.
So I think David Schrock is a big fan of him. So,
okay. Is he the worship pastor that does Worship Matters? He's, what's it called? Crap. The one, oh my word.
I'm not sure.
I'm totally forgetting. Grace.
Maybe.
I'm forgetting.
I'm not sure.
Oh Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Is I think he's the worship pastor of the church that produced that song.
He could be, very well could be.
Yeah.
So he has a great website and stuff. So he talks about like, should Christians sing secular music? Because that's kind of the question I think that comes up. Yeah. And when you have someone like myself who grew up just obsessed with Christian music, I wasn't originally. So I was not born into a Christian household. We became Christians after I was born. My whole family did. Wow. So my mom, I'll shorten this, but my mom got like deathly ill when I was 4 and like almost died. Wow. Like they were telling my dad, you need to make funeral arrangements because she's not going to be here in 3 days, And so like I was unaware but I knew she was really sick. She was in the hospital for a very long time. And it was in that sickness that she came to know the Lord. And then a few years later, my dad got very, very ill, chronically ill. And so I grew up with him from the time I was 6 until I was 16. He had it was just laundry list of medical conditions, primarily lung disease, and he died when I was 16. But it was in that illness that he found, salvation. And so we all experienced that together, right? So I didn't listen to Christian music, and then my friend told me about Toby Mac and DC Talk.
Yes,
and
DC Talk.
So Jesus Freak I got for Christmas. I got that record for Christmas, and I had to buy a replacement copy because I wore it out, right?
Yeah.
And so that sparked it. And then I saw him on tour with Chris Tomlin together. It was the Hello Tonight tour, because it was Hello Love was Tomlin's record, and Tonight was Toby Mac's.
Yeah, wow.
So it was the Hello Tonight tour.
Cool.
And that was mind-blowing experience. That show was 40,000 people, sold out, DT Energy Center, wild. And so that started me. And then I remember one year when I was like 14, Switchfoot was announced to headline a music festival in Northern Michigan, a Christian music festival.
Unity?
Big ticket.
Big ticket, okay, yeah.
And I was livid.
Yeah, dude.
I was like, what? They don't sing explicitly Christian songs,
Ooh.
Like I remember being so mad.
Angry, yeah.
Anyway, and so my dad died, and then time of just grief. Yeah. A lot of grief. 10 years of illness, and then this, and the rest of the world moves on, and you're stuck with still living in that.
Yeah.
Right. You're still living in that grief for a few weeks. People are like, "Oh, you're having a hard time right now," but eventually people move on, and you don't.
Yeah.
And you still have that hurt. And so I was reading an article about. It was like records that are celebrating an anniversary this year that have changed the Christian music industry. And one of them was The Beautiful Letdown. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, Dare You to Move, This Is Your Life, More Than Fine. I know those 3 songs. They play those on Christian radio. I didn't know Meant to Live, weirdly enough. I didn't know that one. That night, I was at Walmart. I looked down. I always glance at the $5 CD bin, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're a teenager and you love music, you always want more music, right?
Yeah.
So I look, and that record was sitting on top of the CD pile, staring me in the face. I just read about it that day, right? And I looked at my mom. I grabbed it. I was 16. I said, Mom,
Please.
I don't know why, but I feel like I'm supposed to buy this. I don't know why, but not to get like weird, but like I was like, I really feel like that was put in my life that night for a reason. Yeah. So she's like, sure, it's $5, sure. And so we listened to it, and by the end, the last song on that record is 24. And we were both just weeping. Good. We listened to it. We had about a 45-minute car drive, and so we were just weeping by the end of that record. And it changed my life. That album changed my life. And a year to the day that my dad died, I met Switchfoot for the first time. Wow! Before I'd ever seen them in concert, they did like a meet and greet before. It was at a Live Fest 2014, and I looked at John and I said, your music has really meant a lot to me for the last year. And it's been one of the only things like I can put on and that's helped me through hard times. And he got tears in his eyes and he hugged me. He said, "Thank you. This is why we do this." So I feel like number one, they've changed my lives. They've changed my life, right? And without ever being explicit in the things that we would consider traditionally explicit Christian gospel presentations. Because they impacted my life far more than any, Sunday morning worship song ever would. Which then kind of set the gateway for me to listen to bands that I wouldn't normally listen to. Bad Christian released a free, because they also have a record label. they released a free EP by King's Kaleidoscope.
Oh, dude.
Who was not big at the time.
Yeah.
They had just left Mars Hill.
Yeah.
And did Live in Color.
Mm-hmm.
And it was free. And I was like, okay, so many things about that sentence I love. This is how I found Bad Christian. Bad Christian, want to know what that is? Free, music, and the name King's Kaleidoscope.
Right, yeah.
I need to know what this is. And that got me into it. And so I listened to them. And now they are extremely explicit in their gospel presentation, but their music is beautiful. I think they are the standard, in my book, hot take. They're the standard of what Christian music should be. Yeah. It is the best.
Yeah.
They are the best. Yeah. Their production is the best. Their instrumentation is skilled.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so you get into this discussion of, for me, it's not a matter of, are you in the secular industry or are you in the Christian industry? It's a matter of, what are you doing for three things, right? There's a concept called the transcendentals, right? And there's three things: truth, goodness, and beauty. The idea that nothing in creation is higher than those things. So the truth, goodness, and beauty should be the gauge for how we judge art or interact with art. Jefferson Bethke, you familiar with him? He had a viral video. He was the Love Jesus, Hate Religion guy.
Okay. I think
Hate Religion, but Love Jesus. He has a book called I Hate Religion, but Love Jesus.
Yeah.
Great speaker. I've seen him live before. Wonderful guy. Met him. Great dude. He has a great video. It's probably 6 or 7 years old now, about should I listen to, he would answer questions. Should I listen to secular music? He said, okay.
Yeah.
And he said, you can listen to music and look for truth, goodness, and beauty. Yeah. And they can be God-honoring things, even if the artist himself isn't. So Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror, talks about making a change.
Yeah.
And you need to make a change in yourself for the good. That's beautiful, and it's true, and it's good. Yeah. But other songs might not be by him. Yeah. And so that's kind of my gauge when I write music is, I've written worship songs before, right? A guy named Philip LaRue, him and his sister, I think Natalie was her name. They had an act, like pop Christian act in the 90s called LaRue. They were 15 and 17.
Wow.
Right? Their big song was World is spinning in front of me, and sometimes, what's the name of that song? The Reason, okay? That was their big hit. I'm sure you've heard it before. Look it up.
LaRue sounds familiar.
LaRue, yeah. So he's really good friends with Mike Donahue from 10th Avenue North.
Okay.
But he has a like a music industry program, and I remember I got like a free version of it in high school. And he talked about songwriting, and you need to write what's natural to you. So there was a guy who tried to be a worship songwriter that went through his program and really tried to force it. But it turns out what flowed naturally out of him was just like singer-songwriter tunes. Yeah. I've tried to write worship music, but I totally forced it. And what comes out of me naturally is kind of the singer-songwriter thing, right? And it's true. I would write a really bad hip hop song. like I wouldn't be good at it.
Unless it's like a Rage Against the Machine kind of.
Yeah, I could probably do that, I guess. But, but then I look at like Kanye West, who Christian and I were having this conversation, and I think he'd be okay with me saying this. He was saying, I don't know if you've listened to Jesus is King, right?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Without a doubt.
So good.
To me, without a doubt. That is honest and genuine. And everyone talks about, oh, you're my Chick-fil-A, whatever. Right. But at the same time, like those other pieces of music on there are gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're beautiful. And Christian said, just think about this. The Lord, knowing all things from the beginning to the end of time, gave this man a platform for decades that promoted self. Really, at the core of everything. Yeah. Self. I'm the greatest. Kanye's number one. Right? All these things. Sex, drugs, money. Yeah. Right? For him to make this record that millions of people are going to listen to, that have bigger reach than any CCM artist could ever have.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's amazing. So kind of following that up, we have to go soon.
Yes.
But to wrap up here, we have a sound check to get to. But,
yes.
a few things I've really loved. Like I said, Bob Kauflin, Worship Matters. There's a great video essay by a guy named Josh Keefe, okay, on YouTube. He's a fairly newer creator, but I think his first two videos were this Christian art video essay, and the first one is called "The Problem with Christian Music," and the second one is "The Problem with Christian Movies." Because if you've ever seen a Christian movie...
Okay, is this the guy who references Josh Garrels at the end of his video?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, my word.
Yeah.
That's a good video.
Like, Christian art isn't all that great most of the time.
Not held to a high standard a lot of the time, yeah.
I had a great class in college that was art in the Bible. Theology in the arts.
Yeah.
So Francis Schaeffer, that's the book, is Art in the Bible. By Francis Schaeffer. Take a read of that sometime if you get a chance. But kind of tracing it back to the iconoclastic controversy of, the Catholic Church using icons, which, the Catholic Church, whatever problems they have, they do art wonderfully, right? They do art beautifully. Icons are beautiful. Murals, they're beautiful. Their churches are beautiful.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're all intentional. Well, then you get the Protestant Reformation that happens. And we're going to push the pendulum swing as far away from that as we can.
Yeah.
So we're not going to even have art. And then any depiction, this idea that any depiction you have of Jesus is taking the image of God in vain. Right? The image of God. And I think we could extend that. I don't know if anyone said this. I'm sure someone has. But I think we could extend that to say, what about like the sound of God, the voice of God in vain, right? Like the idea that I grew up in a church that was, we had a contemporary service. We had a traditional service.
Right.
That was normal for me.
Right.
I now think that is so sad. I went to a church back in January. I was in Florida. I went to a church. And they had a sign that said contemporary worship, traditional worship, and there were arrows pointing in the opposite direction because they were in different buildings.
I'm sorry, that's not. It's just
No,
it's
right?
funny to me though. I'm just thinking about you go over there and you
Right.
go over there and we'll say hi and have cookies
Exactly.
afterwards. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Different buildings.
Wow.
Right?
Dang.
I took a picture because I was like, there is something. I don't know if you have like show notes that you can put
Oh yeah, we can do
links
that.
in.
Yeah.
I'll send you the photo. You can put it in there. It's so powerful because we've separated those things.
Yeah.
My church went through a massive worship war.
Yeah.
When I was there, I was a little kid youth leader, right? Worship leader.
Yeah.
I started playing in the worship band when I was 12. I was leading when I was 15, right? The like traditional side was at war with the contemporary side. Like that's so like if we're divided, like that's so sad. So like I feel like if we can't even agree within churches that have music, right? Like I think the problem isn't the music, right? I think it's deeper than that. But kind of rambling now. But
that's okay.
The idea that Adam Neely is a musician, YouTuber. He's a jazz bassist, and he has a great video that he just published called, I think it's called "Learning to Like CCM."
I think I saw that one.
The genre I hate.
Yeah. Yep.
And he talks about recontextualizing things and the context, and it's pretty simple. Christian music is pretty simple. Josh Keefe makes this point too. He says, we worship an unpredictable God. We worship an unpredictable and like incredible, complex God,
complex,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he shows a song. It's by I don't remember who it is, but it's by a massive worship music church. And he shows how many times they sing the same word over and over. I think it was like something like 17.
Yeah. We receive your love and get to
That's it.
Yeah,
that we receive your grace.
Grace. Yeah. Elevation.
Receive your grace. Anyway, you never know I was a singer of a band, would you? But he talks about that, and he says, we worship an unpredictable God, and for people who worship an unpredictable God, our art that we honor him with, that we make for him, is predictable and sterile. And that's really sad. And so I think at the end of the day, Bob Kauflin says, we can't judge somebody's heart by what we see, right? But at the end of the day, you should be making music that is God honoring. The idea of calling, right? Different people, different callings. My church was really big on callings growing up. Gives you a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What's your calling? Find your calling.
What's your one singular purpose in life for your entire life? Yeah.
15-year-old Jacob. Find it. Make this decision. I don't know if you're a comedy fan, John Mulaney. Come on, kid, make the right decision. Sign on the dotted line.
Right,
you have sweatpants and a t-shirt. Sign over to go to college. Anyway.
And $180,000 in debt.
And you
it's okay.
spend it already.
You'll figure it out.
Exactly.
You're 18. You got the whole life figured out.
And so the idea of calling, but I don't remember who it was. I wish I could remember who it was that said to me, "Your calling and vocation aren't always the same thing."
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Vocationally, I want to be a musician vocationally.
Yeah.
But my calling isn't to play music necessarily. My calling is to, be a minister.
Yeah.
And you can do that.
Yeah.
My mom's an RN. My mother's been an RN for 30 years.
Yeah.
She's a caretaker.
Right.
She's not just a nurse. Her calling is to be a caretaker.
Yeah.
That is her gift.
Yeah.
And she does that not just as a nurse, but at home when she's not on the clock.
Right.
But she fulfills that calling also through her vocation.
Right.
So the idea of different people having, that aside, the idea of different people having different voices and different gifts to reach out. I just read a great book. You'll hear me talk a lot about this if you're around me now. It's called How Your Story Sets You Free. Kind of a new agey title.
Yeah.
It's not really a new agey book. It's about finding your voice, and it's encouraging people to find their voice, to tell their story, because there's someone in the world right now.
Yeah.
There's somebody in the world who needs to hear your story. They need your story, even if it's one person.
Yeah.
That they need that.
Yeah.
Someone does somewhere, and that's going to change their life.
Wow.
Right? And so it was really inspiring, and it was the 1,000th book I've read since I started reading. So I'm a big reader, and it was a really powerful book. I'd recommend checking it out. I don't remember the authors' names. They're co-authored. They do the Million Persons Project is the people who did that. But I really think the music industry is about finding your voice.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot, find your voice. And if your voice is to write, massive Christian music hits that they're going to sing, if you're Chris Tomlin, who writes How Great Is Our God, Louis Giglio, he played it for Louis Giglio, I think the story is, in like the hotel room they were in or whatever. And Louis Giglio said to him, the world is going to sing that song. And he said, I just want to know if we could do it for youth group tomorrow.
Right,
So if you're Chris Tomlin, and that song's changed the Christian music industry, worship services, we've all grown up singing that song.
Probably changed a lot of lives.
Absolutely, Absolutely. It's beautiful. But so if that's what your voice is, if that's what comes naturally to you, use that for the glory of God.
Yes.
But to me, it's Romans 12, right? 1 and 2, offer yourselves as a living sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Holy and pure. This is your spiritual worship. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you live it's an attitude, it's a posture. Without trying to throw too many buzzwords in there. If you're doing something, do it for the glory of God.
Yeah.
And I think that's the core of it. It's easy to get caught up in the black and white.
Yeah.
Sacred versus secular.
Right.
If we're actually looking at, this is going to sound very dispensationalist of me, but if we're looking at the position we're in now as Christians, Jesus died for us. So wherever we go, we have the Holy Spirit. Right?
Yeah.
That is sacred. What we do is sacred if we are living our lives in a worshipful way.
Yeah.
So the argument of sacred versus secular is the mindset's completely different.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Yeah. And I think that's the main application point. I think just to wrap this up is I think it's actually a more challenging application, because we can ask the question of, okay, what do I do? Is it wrong for me to do secular music as a Christian?
Right.
Or is it right for me to do Christian music as a Christian? But the kind of disappointingly challenging thing about that is that's the wrong question. To where it's more so about, you have to have this very I would say intuition, but discernment-led conversation with the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely.
About what is it that you've created me for? And the hard part is you have to soak up Scripture. You need to grow wise in the Lord, and you need to become just to receive that spiritual wisdom. But then you also have to have faith in the Lord to then be like, this is the only thing I'm hearing back as an answer for you. So I'm just going to go with this. Yeah. And if I'm wrong, I trust you're going to guide me into the right place.
Look at you too.
Yeah.
A great book I had to read for college once again is called Walk On, The Spiritual Journey of U2.
Yeah.
Bono is a devout Christian.
Yeah.
Look at him. Look at, what was I going to say? I was thinking of, oh man, I'm blanking on him now. Bono, even DC Talk to a certain extent, they were crossover. Bob Dylan, there we go. That's what I was thinking of. I mean, he had a huge reformation. He was born again, right? He made a record that is explicitly Christian. You know who else did? Snoop Dogg.
What the world?
Like 2 years ago.
What?
He had a gospel record that came out. Which I don't know a lot I can't like say, oh yeah.
Don't stone us in the comment section.
I'm not sure. But I remember listening to it and I was like, wow, this is beautiful. Right? This
awesome.
is gospel music. But so I think it's a matter of once again like where you're at and what's honest reflection. You also have the flip side of that, like Derek Webb. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was in Caveman's Call, 90s Christian band. He started Noise Trade actually. To promote one of his records. He was kind of like a ragamuffin gospel person, like Rich Mullins, for a long time. Wrote a lot of really powerful, convicting songs. Is now an atheist. But I think he's, I don't know the story there. I don't know him.
Yeah.
I don't know his heart, but I know he had a lot of hurt.
Yeah.
You see those people. So on the flip side also, but it's always really cool to see people who are not explicitly in the Christian music industry, who are like, for the glory of God. Katy Perry, I think she did her Super Bowl performance a few years ago, which was controversial. Yeah, because she said in an interview afterwards that I don't remember what she said exactly, but she was talking about. She was thanking God for the opportunity, and her focus was on God during then, and a lot of people were like, "No, you're whatever, right. You're no Katy Perry." I can hear the clickbait article right now. Yeah. No, Katy Perry, what you experienced wasn't God. Yeah, and then you can hear the other one that's like that your friend shares in the comments. That's like, why Katy Perry is a messenger of the gospel. All that kind of thing. Yeah. But that's like the wrong attitude to have. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's absolutely. Is it true? Is it good? Is it beautiful? Yeah. And I think if you are, at least where I'm at, if you're making something that is spirit-led and you're confident in that, and it's true, good, beautiful, and you strive to have those things in your music, I think you're doing the right thing. Yeah. I think you're living in a discerning way. Yeah. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah, and I think honestly I was thinking about this, we'll wrap up with this, but I was thinking about those three questions of is it true, is it good, is it beautiful, which is obviously not the only parts of the Lord, obviously, we can't
absolutely.
No, for sure. But so I'm just prefacing that before I say my next statement. The Lord is so much more than that. But if you think about those 3 points, it's almost like those could be 3 sub-points underneath the question of does this please the Lord?
Exactly.
And the answer for does this please the Lord is this true? Is this good? Is this beautiful? Because even with the creation account of God made this and he said it was good. God made this and he said it was good. Exactly. And then obviously, like the word, the truth, right? Jesus himself was the embodiment of truth. What else would he want besides truth? You know what I'm saying? Which I think even to challenge all of us as whether you're a believer or not, but I think especially to charge you if you're a believer is honest doesn't always mean truth. You know what I'm saying? So I think saying that carefully, I think there's a place for honesty, but there also has to be, I think, an example set for being honest, but then encouraging people towards truth at the same time. Now, that doesn't have to be in every single song. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes for temptation can be, I'm going to be honest, and I got to pull us back in truth, but there's a line to walk there. But I think just as a challenge, I think for all of us, because it's like, well, I'm just being honest. It's like, well, we can be actually sinning against the Lord and complaining by being honest. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the thing to watch out for. Obviously, the opposite side is vanity, where we can start getting, I have to appear all Christian. So there's a line to walk, and all this once again comes down to, like, there's no simple way to think about it. Like, literally, it takes being a living sacrifice and staying on the altar and asking the Lord for guidance and wisdom every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the hard thing. So there's not an easy answer. So
no.
Jake, well, hey, thanks so much for coming to the show, man. If you guys want to check out Jacob, you can check him out personally on Instagram at the Concussed Coffee Freak. Is that what it is?
Concussed Coffee Geek.
Coffee Geek, sorry. And then you can check out the American Hotel System on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as well.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on Twitter. I mean, Twitter's kind of dead.
Yeah, I don't really do Twitter.
Bandcamp. We're not on MySpace.
Yeah.
I thought about that. I was like, man, we should make a MySpace.
We should make a MySpace.
No one's doing that.
MySpace is like the new tape deck. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
It's like bring records back around.
Yeah, exactly. But we have, our record came out in December.
Yeah.
It's called The Sunken Truth.
It's really good. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
It's really good.
Because it was actually supposed to be the first part in a trilogy. I'm going to say this because we've abandoned this project.
Yeah.
It was going to be the first part in a trilogy of records called The Transcendentals.
Ooh.
So, Sunken Truth, I was going to have one about beauty and one about goodness.
Oh, dude.
And they were going to be my trilogy.
Oh, dude.
We're not doing that anymore.
Oh, man.
So we're doing something else. Oh. But that was my original plan. So like that's the truth is a big theme in my life, my personal life, like wanting to know the truth. I'm very type A personality, and I'm a 1 on the Enneagram. I'm a 1 wing too. But I love facts, and I want to know what is true. And so that's kind of
that I know.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so my music is just kind of my reflection of me searching for that.